Hey guys, this is Locke. In my previous video, I showed you a build for Safiyyah where I was able to basically delete any non-boss, non-elite unit from the game, like, an enemy, using Safiyyah's setup to deplete their HP. In this video, I'm showing you a different build, and I'm going to show you what I was able to do with this build to sell you this build. But I was basically able to beat all of the um, floor 9 and the Tower of Trials, except for, 9-5, but I was able to do all of them solo with just Safiyyah, which I thought was pretty cool, right? The last level 9-5, I couldn't really do it because there were just too many defenders that had a disadvantage, so they would all basically one-shot her, and it was just a bit too difficult to do solo, so I did a duo with the Kambe. But yeah, I mean, so let's go into it. Let's talk about the build a little bit first, and then I can show you some of these videos and show you how I did it. So in the previous video, I was using the weapon eroder to basically do 30% of damage up front, and then use her trait twice to proc the her HP, sorry, the enemy's HP all the way down to below 30%, so that the settlement of the hangman proc, and they could easily delete any one unit. And I think that's actually a pretty strong build. The build that you're going to use is going to depend on the situation, right? And so there might be situations where you're just facing high HP heroes, like, high HP enemies, and you just want to be able to delete somebody because you have too much pressure. Too many people are closing in. So I think that makes sense for that. I told you that that was one of my builds, and I'm going to show you other builds. I mentioned that in the video, and so in this video now I'm showing you a different build. So this build is going to be focused around the Shadowless Blade technique, and what this does is it basically gives her unlimited dodge for single target attacks. So as enemies keep attacking, she will dodge, and in addition to dodging, she will apply an attack, an AoE attack, a 3x4 area AoE attack, and she will apply anyone that gets hit with vulnerable 2, and she will recover 2 energy. So this skill does a lot of things, and one of the most important parts for this skill is that it gives you energy back, because the assassin summoning, the HM agent, whatever, summoning them costs 4 energy, so it's pretty energy intensive. But you have a skill that actually lets you regain energy so that you can use this the next turn. In addition to that, it also gives you vulnerable as well, and vulnerable actually increases the damage of your trait. So that's actually a really neat thing to have on the skill. Um, so basically, I was able to use this in addition to her talent, not her talent, but my watcher talent, not this one, sorry, um, this one. So I was able to use, well, I'm using level 2, able to use Invincible Hero to basically make her invincible. So after that expires, one turn of unlimited single target dodge, then the next turn I would use this one, Invincible. So again, as enemies attack, they get hit back for enhanced strike back 2 damage. And then she just has to wait one more turn, and then she's able to use her own dodge again. In addition to that, these levels in the tower also have barrels, right? Let me just show you one example. So I was able to use the barrel to do quite a bit of significant damage as well. I believe in the first stage I didn't even use the talent. I'm just going to speed this up so you can kind of see what happened. But basically I was able to use that barrel right there to damage a bunch of them right away. And after that it was just easy picking. Um, there you go. So depending on the scenario, like, you might not be able to replicate this if there's no barrel around, right? So you have to kind of look at her build, because she has very, very good options. Her options are all fantastic. So you have to look at them and see which one makes sense to use that. Um, just give me a second to finish this fight, and then I will go on to explain it in a bit more detail. But she can do massive damage. Like, look at that. She basically just one deletes this with all the things that she has. So let me quit. Um, yeah. So I feel like the settlement of the hangman is is a huge part of her. Like it, because she's doing um, extra attacks. Like even if she doesn't attack, even if an ally attacks and she uses the reaction ability to attack, that's still going to then trigger the trait. And if after the trait triggers, they have less than 30% HP, the settlement of the hangman will also do a lot of damage. So I was able to use this to get a lot of damage off. I was also able to use the Course of Fortune Tarot to get a lot of damage off as well, as you'll see in the videos. Um, so I found this to be a pretty effective build as well. I thought the other build was effective, but this one is also effective. And the reason I switched this from back to the normal attack is because this one only has 80% damage, whereas this one is 100%. So I mean, the ally that's around here is usually the HM agent, which you know I didn't really need it for that. So that's the reason why I went back to the normal attack for doing this. But this was the build I used. In the beginning, I actually used this one, the wand, because I wanted to see how good this was. Wait, no, that's not what I did. Sorry, I used the wand. This one. Yeah, I used this wand in the first 9-1 and 9-2 because I wanted to see, you know, if it's worth it. But I ended up going the other way. I think the other one is better. Um, so I'm just trying to find the engraving I used. I think it was this one. I don't know, like one of them with the higher attack. Uh, I ended up going this one because she benefits from the extra lifesteal. Because for the turns that she's not able to dodge, and also if enemies cast AoE, she's weak to it. She has no way of defending herself from AoE attacks. So she does take damage from AoE. So by having lifesteal, because I'm not having any other healer on the field right now, I was able to use this to replenish some of her health. And the increase, um, I find that the trait benefits from damage buffs. So I haven't tested this to know that this 5% damage increase affects this or not, because I just haven't had the time to exactly do that test, because that's a little bit harder to do. But I think it should. Like, you know, when I do a damage 3 buffs, like if I do Edda's damage 3 buff, it does affect the trait. So I would assume that this 5% damage increase also affects the trait. So that means that, you know, right now at level 1, uh, the max amount of damage you can do is 16% of the target. But this is now increased by 5%. So it's no longer 16, it's like 18 or something, 17, 18, something like that. So those damage buffs are actually helpful because they go past the cap that's stated here. So same thing with crit damage as well. If you happen to crit, the crit damage portion will actually increase above the 16%. And same with other damage buffs like damage 3. So damage 3, if you can pair her with a damage 3 buffer, she's going to do even more massive damage with her trait. So that's one way to get even more out of her. So I think that's really like, you know, that's explain. I think that explains the build. Um, Really, I think I should just maybe play some of these to show you how it how I did. Um, but really, I mean, I was only able to do this because I used the talent that lets me to have a second turn. Like, you know, right now I'm actually gonna use it because otherwise she's gonna die to these flame things that's around her. So I was able to use the environment and the talent to basically beat these. Otherwise, I don't think I would have been able to solo this for sure with her, because I mean, she's powerful, but she's not that powerful. You know, I needed the environment. As you can see, like, she's using these flame things to destroy everything around her, which was basically the way I was able to beat this. So it's not that she is massively doing so much insane damage that she just one-shots everyone. That's not what's happening at all. She's using the environment. So she's using barrels, she's using these uh, noxious gas to blow them up to do damage. And I mean, that's the main thing here. So I might as well stop this now because it's just easy pickings, whatever's left over. Maybe I'll show you the last one. I think that one is kind of interesting as well. So here I have so many of these heroes that are defender type, And there's one hero, like at the beginning, this guy, who is a breaker type. So I mean, I guess I could copy him, but he usually just dies in the beginning anyway, and then I am kind of stuck. So I could bring a breaker, but I thought I would just bring a Kambe because I mean they go well together. They're both summoners, so I just thought I would try it out, and I was able to beat it. It took a bit of tries, but I was able to do it. So I thought I would show you guys because I thought it was pretty cool. Um, you know, um, so she's definitely a very strong character, and there's definitely more than one way to play her. And um, yeah, I mean, depending on the situation, you would have to bring different kind of builds. Like for example, I've so far I've always used the settlement of the hanged man, but against boss fights, I would probably not use that. So in the next video I'm gonna do a build just for bosses, focusing on just them and how I would build her and what I would uh, do with her to focus her only against boss fights. This is not really a boss fight. This is again like there's a lot of enemies around, um, so it's not exactly a boss fight. But even these enemies, they do have the percent HP reduction. So the settlement of the hangman, for example, is not doing 30% damage on them. It's only doing 15%. But still, it does quite a bit. For actual bosses, it's not going to do 15. It's going to do 5% of 30, which I think is like 6%, I think. So that's not, it's a lot less powerful against bosses. So I would probably not bring settlement of the hangman against those like true bosses, like weaponry trial 1, 2, 3. Um, but yeah, that's it. And I mean, even now, I used a Akambe in the beginning, but then after he dies, and she just finishes the rest of these by herself, basically. There's three guys left, and yeah, I mean, I would suggest just trying this yourself. Like, just take her into some content by herself, and just look at how you can beat it because it's interesting to just figure it out, right? And you do have your talents, um, and if you have environmental things around. In this one, I only had the one barrel at the beginning that took out one of those guys, and then the suppression, he healed himself back up. So I didn't really have much environment here. I had to do everything with just her and a Akambe. And I mean, it worked. I obviously used the talent. I maximized the talents to make sure I kill these guys. But it was fun kind of figuring it out. So if you like her, I would suggest doing the same. It's not just like a flex. It's you understand the character a lot better as well. You understand the limitations, and it's just kind of fun, you know. Um, Finally, one of the most important things I learned while I was doing this was how important that hangman's mark is, because if I didn't have that mark, she does significantly less damage. First of all, the settlement of the hangman is not going to proc, right? And if one of your allies hits these guys, um, she's not going to do a covering attack, and she's also not going to do her trait if the enemies doesn't have a hangman mark. As you can see, the trait only goes on attacking enemies with the hangman's mark. Like, so they have to have the hangman's mark for her to actually use a lot of damage. So I ended up using this assassin like very specifically. Like if you look at the video again more slower, you would notice that I used this assassin to mark enemies. Like that's what he did most of the time. Um, because if I don't have the Hangman's Mark, especially at 1 star, it's really hard to get that. At 3 star, you can mark 2 enemies, but at 1 star, you only get one. So it's really hard to, when there's like 4 or 5 enemies coming at you, to do a lot of damage if you're not able to spread the mark around. So that actually helped me to understand some of her limitations and how badly I needed that mark to be able to um, play her play her better. So anyway, that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this build as well, and I think it's more similar to what other people are playing. When I posted my other, like my first video about the um, weapon eroder, like this build, a lot of people said that they were using what I just showed you, like a build like this. Possibly not with the settlement of the hangman. They might be using something else instead here. But they were talking about this one and how powerful it is. And I agree, it is a very powerful build. But now, and you have options now, which one you want to use. And I think it's good to have options because it's a good problem to have. Like, she has too many good things. So you have to figure out what of the good things you want to have. If you only have 3 good skills and everything else is rubbish, I mean, everyone would build her the exact same way. So I think it's actually a good problem to have that encourages people to build her differently and use her in multiple different ways. So that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm just gonna let the weaponry, not weaponry, the uh, 9.3 and 9.4 play in the background, but I'm gonna stop talking, just in case you guys wanted to see how I did it with her for these 2 stages as well. But I will stop talking. So I hope you guys have a good day, and I will see you guys next time.